What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of the Infinity Flux Letters page. I'm Matt.
I'm Andy.
This is our more, free-flowing live show where
It's
we,
like jazz.
we're going to answer some of your burning questions, and we are going to talk about some news. If there's any news to talk about, if we get there, we're still trying to figure this thing out. Hopefully, we are live by now because we have YouTube pulled up here, and it's still not showing. So there it is. Yes. There's a notification.
We're live.
There
Don't
we
let
are.
anyone tell you that we're not.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Yeah, so sorry guys, we are still trying to figure out this fancy schmancy new system that we have. But yeah, we've got
this is a bumpkins trying to figure out the technology.
This is old man trying to use technology, right? So we have some questions that we have compiled and collated from past videos that we wanted to address. We've also got some articles that we can talk about if we if we run out, if nobody has anything else to say and we're all just sitting here twiddling our thumbs, like, well, let's talk about this new Venom that Marvel announced today.
But we've also got questions coming in on YouTube and on your TikTok. So
yeah,
I think we're going to have plenty to talk about.
We will have plenty to talk about. So we're going to start with, like I said, we collated some questions that we've gotten from the last video and a couple others. And we want to start with one from our friend Larry Smith, who says, what do you think would improve the current run of Amazing Spider-Man? So, we are all about positivity on this channel, and, we enjoy comics, and we would rather focus on the things that we like versus the things that we're not enjoying so much. And, it's not too far of a stretch to say Amazing Spider-Man right now, the current run, isn't really tickling our fancy all that much. So we have some ideas for what we think, or not ideas, but...
No, that's for one thing. It is easier said than done.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into creating a comic and a series and everything. So, for what's for somebody's taste may not be for another's. There's a lot that goes into this.
Yeah.
So our personal opinions are just two guys blathering on the internet about what they would want to do if they wrote Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is and we'll talk about this there's another question that we're going to talk about where, we're here at a store, we are a retailer, but we're also just comic book fans as well. I've been reading comics literally my entire life, and so we're fans too. So in regards to the current Amazing Spider-Man, I just feel like they need to let Peter develop a little bit. If you look at, if you had never read any Spider-Man and you read a Spider-Man comic from the 60s and you read one now, Peter is in exactly the same place in his life. He's, except maybe the job and the money thing, but he's still trying to hide his secret identity from Aunt May and everybody else around him. He's still single. He still kind of has woman problems and things like that, problems getting dates and keeping commitments and things like that, which is exactly where it was in the 60s. And it's weird because, he had developed past that in the 90s. He got married. There was that whole storyline where they had a baby, but then the baby, Norman Osborn stole the baby, and that was never addressed again in the mainline continuity. And now he's just kind of gone almost full circle all the way back to, I'm just a down on my luck guy trying to be a superhero while also trying to pay the bills. And it's been 60 years. And so it's I think, just let Peter develop, let Peter be happy, because he doesn't seem really all that happy in the main. Now, this is, Ultimate Spider-Man, the new Ultimate Spider-Man, that's a whole separate story.
Yeah.
That's fine. But current 616 Spider-Man, it's let him be happy. It's okay if things go well for him.
Yeah, I think, so if I was to have the great honor of working on Amazing Spider-Man, I would try to look at it, get back to basics. I know everyone says that, but I wouldn't do any of the Spider-Verse stuff. I would have this is Spider-Man. He is swinging through New York City, and the criminals he's fighting are, thugs, classic, Doc Ock, and he's fighting Rhino, and he's fighting Vulture. So that I would have a baseline. And then I would, because what I think when you're saying all that about how he hasn't really developed to where he should be, I think that shows a lot in when they brought Miles Morales in And I feel like when that happened, Peter should have stepped up and aged a little bit to be that mentor character. And I do think in Spectacular Spider-Man we are seeing some of that, and I would like to see that him come to a place where maybe Mary Jane does know he's Spider-Man, Aunt May does know he's Spider-Man, what he does with that, and then he's either mentoring or he's the the Batman and Miles is the Nightwing, and they work together. But I do think Peter needs to, whatever their like set idea for his age it up 5 to 10 years and start treating him like that. Which all of this is to say is it needs to be like Ultimate Spider-Man.
Right.
But, I think you could tailor that to the 616 universe in a way that would make sense.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad that we do have Ultimate Spider-Man, because I look at that and I'm like, well, that's where Peter should be now in 616. So I think, I just let him be happy, let him develop and that kind of stuff.
Do that and then keep releasing series like these Marvel, this story happened back in during the Black Suit era. This happened back Craven's Last Hunt. You can pick places and tell new stories in those places if people want something that's like, I want Spider-Man when he was young and doing all this. But it's weird to be like, I can look back 50 years and look at a Spider-Man book today. Other than the art, not much has changed.
Right. And if you want to, hello Vixen on TikTok, how you doing? If you want, I know Marvel really likes having their young, free-spirited Spider-Man, but they have Miles.
Yeah.
So if you really want your young Spider-Man, utilize Miles to the fullest of his capability, and then let Peter, move on.
Yeah.
I guess. So our other question is really interesting one. It's from our friend Gorgrim, and I had to cut this down just because there's a character limit on this. But basically, the question pertains to our Monday shows and all of the books that we read over the weekend, the previews that we give for the week's books, and it's a little bit behind the scenes information. So the question is, do you guys both read all the books as they come in, or do you just, how we split the books up and that kind of thing? Are the books your personal orders? Do you put them back on the shelf? How many do you read a day? That kind of thing. So
it's a good question.
It's a great question.
There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we don't really talk about, mostly because we don't have time in the Monday show to be like, and here's how the sausage is made.
Right. Yeah. So just to give you a little bit of peek behind the scenes for how our Monday shows go is we on Fridays we look at all the books that have come into the store that we have gotten that have been shipped to us, and hopefully that's almost everything. Every now and then there won't be a shipment, it'll be running late, so we won't have a stack of books or something, but we'll look at everything that's come in, and we will look and try to figure out, all right, what are some of the biggest books coming out? What do we think are people most want to hear about, that kind of thing? And there are so many good books coming out right now that every week we have to make some tough decisions. And it's like, well, I really want to read, whatever number 6, but there's already so much other stuff. We're going to have to just like put this one by the wayside. And so then we just divvy it up. We used to read completely separate books, and we would have to try to figure out who's going to read what. I want to read Superman, but I wanted to read Superman. So we decided that it actually kind of works better when we both read some of the biggest books, because then we can have a conversation about it, and we can pass ideas back and forth. So basically, what we do is we just look and say the biggest of the big. Your Wolverine Revenge that came out this week, or Ultimate Spider-Man is still huge. Your big number ones, all the different X-Men, all the different From the Ashes number ones. We both read those together. And then there's like I don't want to call it like a second tier, but then there's another set of books.
They're also very specialty. Like you've been reading a certain series and I've been reading a certain series, and we're okay. You've read Daredevil since Zdarsky into the new run, all of that. So if there's a Daredevil thing, usually that'll go to you. We either get, if it's a Star Wars book, I do it. That's just, there's certain things that we know.
Yeah, you're the Star Wars guy. I wouldn't want to touch Star Wars at all.
Know there's certain books that go, okay, that's your specialty. Or like you've been reading the Venom books.
Right.
And so when this event starts, I may read the first of the big event, but you tend to take on like, oh, I'll take over the miniseries for this and all of that, while that leaves me open to do the miniseries of something else. It kind of organically works out that way a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's not ever really any, like, we don't really have to think about it too much, who's going to do what, other than what are we going to read to begin with. And like I said, there's so many good books that we each usually go home over the weekend with a stack of anywhere between 12 and 20. I'd say, I usually have a big stack of books, and we try to figure out ahead of time for the books that we both read who's going to talk about what, so that maybe
that's a newer thing we've been doing, where even the books we both read, we try to divvy those up. So maybe we read them mentally, we're taking notes, but we don't take the physical notes that we take for everything else. So that alleviates some of the stress for each of us.
Because it sounds awesome, like, oh, you just got to read comics over the weekend. But I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, because you have to read them, but then you got to make notes. You have to make sure you understand the story, because we want to deliver the best information possible that we can to you guys without spoiling anything.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure, we have to understand what's going on, maybe understand the importance of this particular issue, that kind of thing.
I tell people it's like, it sounds fun, and it is. Like, there's books I can't wait to go home and read, but it is like writing mini book reports.
Yeah.
Like 20 mini book reports over the weekend while you're also trying to do other stuff. So it can be a little consuming, and you want to enjoy the books. And that's kind of why this is also like a job. It's like, I would like to read at a more leisurely pace, but this is like, I got to get through 20 of these.
And we have a comment on TikTok that says, I'm new to reading comics and your channel has really helped me. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much.
That's our ultimate goal is being positive about comics. So if you come in and maybe you have an opinion, like, I like this book or I don't like this book, that's cool. Like, there's comics for everybody, and that it is, we never get too far in the weeds where someone who's new can't find enjoyment in stuff we talk about. We'll try and, take people along for the rides. We're not doing deep dives on anything or anything like that. So this is a new user-friendly place.
Yeah. And so that's where, we do have to sort of separate, we are super duper big comic book fans, but we're also a retailer too. So we have to try to figure out, because we get comments before about, what happened to, I think somebody said once, like, what happened to, how come you didn't mention Philadelphia number 34 or something like that? And it's like, well, that's, that's a great book, but we have to try to figure out what is, the majority of people, like, what is the big new stuff they want to hear about? So we have to kind of separate, what do I want to read personally, just because I'm a fan of this, versus what do we communicate, what do we read for the show and communicate out to people and that kind of thing. So we do have to try to find that happy medium of comic book fan, but retailer, giving good information about relevant books, but also not leaving other books by the wayside if there's something we need to talk about. But
there's plenty of stuff that, like you said, we are fans of, and we may stop talking about on the show at some point, whether it gets past issue 3 or whatever, but we're still reading on our own personal time.
Oh, for sure.
Just,
oh my gosh.
We have to kind of tailor make it towards, like we said, what needs the most information. What do people, we think they'll go into a comic book store and say, this book looks interesting, but I know nothing about it. How do we inform them about that?
And Card Imperial and Comics, order from you guys. Great shipping and prices. Thank you very much. We have a dedicated team of folks who are focused on shipping.
Yeah.
It's not just like, Andy's runs out from behind the counter and grabs a book and throws it in an envelope. There is a team of people that are devoted to packing these things up really well, really tight, very secure, and then sending them out in a timely fashion. So we appreciate you, with the compliments. We try really hard to make it a good experience for everybody.
I think one of the other parts of that question was like, what are the books that we take? So they aren't always like the books that we'll be buying.
Oh yeah.
So we do take them back. That's why we also are very careful with them when we read them.
Mm-hmm.
We try not to do anything to them that would harm them in any way. And then, but sometimes, like this last one, we both ordered a copy of Wolverine Revenge, the Red Band edition. Yeah. So the copies we read were just our copies of that book.
Yeah.
So it works out different ways.
Yeah, so that's, because I've been asked about that before.
How do you get books early?
Yeah, the books that we take home and read, those aren't ours. Like, we read them, we bring them back to the store, they get put back on the shelf. And then on Wednesday, we buy our own pull list, which sometimes there's some of the same books and sometimes there's not. So, but yeah, the ones that we read over the weekend, we return those to the store. Those aren't ours to keep.
Yeah, we're not given those copies.
We give them back and then buy our pull list regularly. The name changes says I'm from Canada, so I would order if I was in the States. We don't ship internationally, right?
Not yet. As we grow, that's always a possibility further down the line. But unfortunately, right now, only within the contiguous United States.
That's a tough word.
Yeah, still haven't mastered it yet.
There's a question up there on TikTok that says, what do you think was the comic that first got you into reading comics? I know exactly what my first comic book was to begin with. It was DC Comics Presents number 76 from 1984. My mom, it was on the spinner rack at the grocery store. My mom bought it for me. I don't know why, but it was a
DC to get you to shut up.
Right. DC Comics Presents was a sort of a Superman team up book, kind of like a Marvel team up, had Spider-Man and somebody else. DC Comics Presents was Superman teaming up with somebody every issue, and that one was Superman and Wonder Woman. I didn't really understand what was going on in the book at the time. I was like 5 years old, but it was awesome. And I had a few more comics here and there throughout the 80s. But then in 1991, the Marvel Series 2 trading cards came out. A friend of mine gave me a bunch of his extras, and I didn't know anything about most of them, but I wanted to. I was like, what? I was like, who is this Wolverine and Sabretooth guy? Why are they fighting? This guy named Daredevil, he's fighting this big other guy named Kingpin. I want to know all about it. And I mean, I had a comic shop in the town where I grew up, and do
you bring him the cards and say, this guy?
Yeah, give me this guy.
Give me this guy and two of this guy.
Yeah. So so even though I had comics growing up, or when I was really little in the 80s, it was those cards in 1991 that really just like set me on the path, and I never looked back. Do you remember your?
I remember because I'm younger than you, so I wrote. It was a bit
Don't
later.
Say that.
Sorry to state facts. So it's kind of two answers to that. I remember getting one of those figure 2-packs that came with Superman and Doomsday, or Superman and somebody, and it came with, and I can't remember the issue number. It was like a Superman Man of Steel or something like that. It had Superman. It was like split down the middle, and he was like motioning people to come from one side to the other. That was the first one I remember, and I still own till this day. Throughout the years, I would, my dad read comics when he was younger, so I would ask him questions about those characters. So I always, when like one of the little shows came to the mall where the guy would set up with a couple of comic boxes, I always liked Aquaman, so I'd get a couple of those. Yeah. But then if you were to ask, like, when did you start reading comics on a consistent, like, I'm going to comic book store, that was when Blackest Night came out. I had a friend who was ordering his comics, and he was like, this is so good. Maybe there were 2 issues in the Blackest Night. And I was like, this does look really good. I learned there was a comic book store in the area, and I remember going in and being like, I just want to read this book. And the person there was like, great, we've got them all here. And I remember being confused, like, how much are they? Like, because I was used to like the mall setup and everything where it's like, well, yeah, it says 12 cents on the cover, but it's actually a $5 book or whatever. And he's like, I don't know, they're new releases. It's like $2.99 or whatever. I was like, oh, give me all of them. So I bought everything Blackest Night that was out. And pretty much since that point, which was like, 2008, I haven't stopped. Like, that one thing led to another. I remember that was, Green Lantern and all of that, all the tie-ins. And then around the same time, a little bit after, like, I remember being like, what's like a Spider-Man book? And that's when Spider Island was going on.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, well, Spider Island's really good.
Yeah.
And it just branched from Blackest Night. And to this day, like, Blackest Night, I hold near and dear to my heart as, like, for me, that was like the pinnacle. That's what made me read comics.
Well, it's funny because, even though I was collecting comics, like hardcore collecting them in the 90s, I was a Marvel and Image kid. And, DC, I would, I'm going to move that puzzle piece real quick. Hold on.
This is live.
Yeah, we're doing it live, and because this is our more laid back show, I can get up and do this. There we go. So yeah, I was a Marvel and an Image kid, and I read like Death of Superman, and first little bit of Nightfall and some of the Robin miniseries, but I was never like hardcore into DC until Jeff Johns' run on Green Lantern. I think it was 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I love Green Lantern, and I want to read some Green Lantern. So
Great time to be like, out of all the characters, like Green Lantern, I wonder if it's good right now. Oh, actually, it's one of the best runs of all time going on.
Right. So when I started, that run had already been out for like 3 years. So I had a lot that I could I could binge a lot of it, and I was like, this is awesome. And that just led me down the path of, obviously I knew the characters and.
You'd seen the movies at that point.
I knew Superman and Batman and Green Lantern and Green Arrow and all those guys, but like I went down the deep rabbit hole of learning everything. I didn't know the difference between,
Plastic Man and Elongated Man.
There was a lot that I had to learn, like with Flash, with Barry and Wally, and what exactly happened, and Bart and Jay Garrick, just all that stuff. So there was a lot I had to learn. It was really fun, though. It was fun learning that stuff.
It's fun to learn, and now, like, knowing so much, is like, I kind of wish I could go back and forget so I can relearn. Because I also remember asking, like, well, I want, like, what's in continuity, what's not? And they're like, well, everything's pretty much in continuity.
Right.
Like, so this Batman series here and this one here are both, it's like, yeah, they're pretty much the same. And I remember just like all these things I was learning, and the doors unlocking my head, being like, oh, I'm starting to understand how comics work.
Yeah.
And that was such a cool thing. And it felt like every comic I picked up was like, this is amazing. This is amazing. Like, because it was all so fresh and new.
It's also good, yeah.
But but if you want to go back to like even earliest days of knowing about superheroes and stuff, I would put it all the way back to Super Friends.
Oh yeah,
I watch Super Friends all the time. I think that's where my love of Aquaman came from. Is Super Friends Aquaman, but it was always on, and that just spoke to me. I love that series.
This comic's great. Recently got into DC at Rebirth, which was that's awesome. That's what it's for. It's a great jumping on point. I wanted new stories. I grew up with Marvel. Amazing Spider-Man 347 in my first comic. Amazing Spider-Man 351 was not my first comic, not my first Spider-Man comic, but that's the one that was like my first one as an actual collector who went to the shop every Wednesday. Was it Wednesday back then? I don't remember. But like who was buying comics every single week. And that's the one where Mark Bagley started on art. And I was like, what the heck is a Tri-Sentinel? And who is this guy flying around? It was Nova. Yeah. But I was like, who is this guy? And it was so much fun. And that was before the internet too. So like, it was fun learning that stuff and having to get like the Marvel handbooks and all that stuff. Like I love reading those issues because it takes me back to that time.
Yeah.
And I just remember being a kid, like 12 years old, trying to learn all these characters. Like I could.
There's definitely some rose-colored glasses that I don't mind wearing. When I go back to some of those old books that I don't know if they were good or bad, but I love them.
Yeah,
I have such a fondness for them that I see them completely different.
Yeah, and I want to leave this comment up because they say I recently got into DC at Rebirth, which is awesome. We are super excited for DC Comics in October when they do their All-In initiative, because that is it's not a reboot, it's not a renumbering, but that is another great place to jump on to DC Comics, because DC Comics has been doing such great work, especially within the last 2 years. They've really been firing on all cylinders, and we are super excited about DC. So if there's anybody else out there who wants to jump onto DC, October is going to be a great time to do that, because everything is getting not new launches and new renumberings, but new story arcs.
Yeah.
Everything, if you've been reading DC for a while, everything is still continuing, but there's going to be brand new stories to jump onto. So if there's anybody else who is, wanting to get on that DC train, October is going to be a great month for you.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. There's probably a couple of books I'm going to try out that I haven't been reading, but are going to have either a new creative team or just a new story that sounds interesting. It's going to be good for us, for our show, maybe shake it up a little bit, start trying out different books. And then we have the absolute books that are coming out as well. absolute Batman, absolute Superman, absolute Wonder Woman that we're all going to be fresh in on, and that's going to be a fun ride.
Yo, definitely. This is a really fun question too, from Don Gleason. If Marvel and DC decided to do a joint event where 5 characters from each universe swap places for a couple of years, who would you choose? That's really interesting.
That's a thinker.
I've been thinking about that a little bit. So I would love, and this might sound too easy, but I would love to see Daredevil over in the DC universe and like maybe slinking around Gotham or Bloodhaven or something to see how he would complement but also contrast with Batman and Nightwing and all those guys. You know, we had the Batman Daredevil crossover book. I think there may have been 1 or 2 of them back in the 90s, and that was really cool. So we did get to see them meet. But like, you know, a really meaty story where Daredevil is having to, you know, sort of work alongside Batman, or maybe in the same city. And how do they work alike, but how are they different? How do they get in each other's way? How do they help each other? Like, I think that would be super, super cool. And then I also thought about, what if Kingpin and Lex Luthor swap places? You know, because they're both like big, you know, moguls and big, you know, titans of industry, that kind of thing. Lex Luthor's a little bit smarter than Kingpin, I think. But Lex Luthor having to contend with the likes of Tony Stark and Reed Richards. I know he's got now, you know, he's got Batman, he's got Mr. Terrific and some of the other really smart guys in the DC universe. But like Tony Stark has the ego to go along with his brains that I think would match Lex Luthor. Reed Richards obviously is a super genius. So like, you know, and then Kingpin having to deal with all of these other heroes who are even probably more good and pure than even the Marvel heroes are, except for maybe Captain America. Like, I just think that would be really interesting.
I would think Green Lantern joining the Guardians of the Galaxy as like changing place with Star-Lord would be a really fun one. But what you want to do with this is find where would be the biggest contrast as a character comes over and what do they see. And I think, I don't know, anything moving Superman over and how he sees things, seeing things through Superman's eyes, especially, you know, stuff going on with like mutants and all of that. Like Superman would be a big defender of mutant kind and stopping like violence against mutants and all of that. So I just, you know, anytime you bring Superman over, I think it's cool. And same with Batman. I think Batman would, in the Marvel universe, have to rethink some of his strategies because he is, you know, he's got Iron Man who he could be like, you're essentially doing what I'm doing. And what can I learn from you? But also what can I, you know, how do I create contingencies for all these new people?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I was thinking too, if we can count a team as one character, I would love to see the Squadron Supreme over in DC. Because the Squadron Supreme was created to be Marvel's version of the Justice League, basically. So to take them and put them actually with the Justice League and be like, wait, that's the same. We're the same. You know, they do the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other. You know, I think that would be really cool.
And Batman meeting the Fantastic Four, I think would be really interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Just the intelligence level. You know, Batman would immediately be like, there's a lot going on here I need to learn.
There's a good question on TikTok. My local shop requires 3 books to keep a subscription. I got 2 X-Men books. Which third one should I get? A Phoenix.
Well,
we were just talking about Phoenix.
So if you're saying you're getting 2 X-Men books, I'm guessing maybe X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. Phoenix would be my next one. We're 2 issues in, but that one, art-wise and story characterization, is high up there for me.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
You know, there's new ones coming out, so I don't know. We'll have to see when Wolverine starts. I'm really looking forward to Wolverine. But I would say my next, and for something that's a little bit different, you've got 2 teams that are different but similar in how a story is structured. It's a team book or whatever. Phoenix being a solo book is a whole different kind of flavor. Yeah,
I really like Phoenix a lot. I would highly recommend that one. And yeah, Alec on TikTok, Kahori from Marvel What If is making her comic debut in 616. That's right. She was the original character created for the What If series on Disney Plus. And now she's getting, I don't know if it's a one-shot or a miniseries, but she's now coming to the comics, which is pretty cool. I don't have an article for that, or we could pull that up. But, oh, yeah, Scott, the Dazzler series is coming too. Scott's a big Dazzler fan.
Yeah.
So that should be really fun. It's only a mini series,
It's a miniseries.
unfortunately.
I wish, we talked about it before, that Marvel would do what DC does, where they miniseries are testing the waters to see
Right.
if it can go further. But I think Dazzler, they're really pushing Dazzler, and if you have a good creative team behind it, I think it's a character that definitely like is a character that we don't have anything like her
Yeah.
in the Marvel universe right now. Like I love the Exterminator series.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
Part of.
Yeah.
And something like that is just a blast. It's just chaos, and I
bring that back. Make that a book. I'd read those guys again. Yeah. So sorry to get sidetracked. That's actually part of the point of the show, though, is to just talk. Like, we've got YouTube Live, we've got TikTok Live up there, and just to talk all to each other. Mm-hmm. That's the whole point of this. But yeah, going back to our Marvel and DC characters swapping places. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we already kind of sort of got that with the amalgam stuff, and there's all kinds. I mean, I like your idea about, you said Green Lantern with Guardians of the Galaxy. You could take Nova, mm-hmm. and introduce him to the Nova Corps, because again, it's like, wait a minute, we do this, we're the same kind of thing. I don't
know if it would be like a full series, but like a one shot where Nova comes over and then he gets a lantern ring or something like that. I think would be really
that would
interesting.
Be neat, yeah.
Or a villain. A villain comes over and they get given, a power ring. I think almost a thing we haven't seen is what villains, like you mentioned Lex and Kingpin, but I think, Magneto coming to the DC universe could just be a whole new thing they haven't dealt with.
Yeah.
So many good options. Yeah. Apocalypse.
Oh my gosh.
Could be really cool.
Stiltman.
Yeah.
It'd be like, what, are you serious? And Mark, I think who I'd like to see Predator go up against next, Spider-Man or the Hulk. So yeah, Predator versus Black Panther #1 came out today. We both read it. It's really good. We got to talk to Benjamin Percy about it about a month or two ago, mm-hmm. and he made it sound super interesting, and it is. And I believe that Marvel may have some more plans for some other Predator versus blank series. We don't know for sure, and we don't know which characters, but I feel like maybe they've got some other plans.
My ultimate thing would be is Predator versus Spider-Man versus Kraven. Have Kraven hunting Spider-Man, and then Predator starts hunting Spider-Man. You got Spider-Man on the run, and then Kraven sees Predator, and it's like, he's not going to outdo me.
Yeah.
And then so you have like this like crazy double hunter situation with Kraven.
Yeah, Punisher to Gotham City. Oh, are you talking about Punisher versus Predator? Would be really cool. Give Hulk a Red Lantern ring. Oh my gosh.
That would be. I mean, yeah. Base it on characters from the Marvel universe come to the DC universe and are immediately given rings.
Yeah.
And how does that ring core happen? I mean, you would also have maybe Wolverine with a red ring.
Yeah.
Captain America would be like a maybe blue.
Blue for Hope. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. God, that's a whole other episode right there. Is which Marvel characters would get which rings? Maybe we'll talk about that in the next one for sure, because we are running a little bit low on time. There was a question on TikTok: which Marvel heroes should Alien fight? Well, we're getting Alien versus Avengers.
They said, how about all of them?
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, so Marvel now, the gauntlet has been laid. Give me Predator versus Wolverine versus Alien versus Avengers. Just bring them all. Just throw them all in a bucket and just let them all fight it out. See who comes out on top.
I think Daredevil with Alien. Because I think and the way, especially with the new, there's a scene in the new Alien movie that involves sound and being quiet, and just having Daredevil, like, maybe in the sewers or something, and he's got the echolocation, which could be really cool with an alien.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be awesome. Steve Scroce doing Predator versus Thing. Is that confirmed? Because I would like to see that.
That also just sounds like fan casting, but it works.
But it works for me. I would read that for sure.
I feel like the Predator just gets to him, finally takes a swing at him, and is like, oh, you're rocked.
Yeah, right. Oh, darn.
Well, never mind.
Yeah, never mind. I'm going to move on. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. We have to, we have to keep these kind of short, and the store's about to close in 5 minutes anyway. But yeah, we just wanted to do another episode just to talk to you guys, answer some of your questions. So for future shows, we do this show every other Wednesday. So our next show will be on September 4th, right around 6 or 6:15 Eastern. So right here on YouTube, on my TikTok. And eventually I think we're going to be streaming to a couple other places too.
Yeah.
But yeah, please leave us comments, questions on this video, on any of our other videos about stuff that you would like to hear us talk about on the next episode of the Letters Page. Again, coming up on September 4th. Super fun. And yeah, we'll all just get in a big room like this and just talk back and forth with each other. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah,
we really
absolutely.
appreciate it. We have a blast doing this, and we want to see this. We would love to see this grow and continue. So you guys have a great rest of your new comic book day, and we will see you on Friday for our Comics from the Future video, where we're talking about a whole bunch of the awesome books that you can pre-order this weekend, all the variant covers and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks guys for watching, and we will see you again very, very soon. And now it's going to be weird because I tried to make that super cool, but now I've got to turn over here and
ambidextrous. You wave with one hand, and then you've got to like.
And it's a double click thing too, so I have to click because I remember last time I said bye and then click, but oh no, there's another button. All right, I'm on the button. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you later.